Hello, my lovelies. I hope you're all well. Now, it's all kicked off while I've been away, and apparently Greg Abbott is fighting back against the Biden administration when it comes to the unchecked thousands and thousands and thousands and millions and whatever of illegal migrants crossing the border. Greg Abbott is fighting back and saying, no, we are going to defend our border as is our constitutional right, and as they should. Let's have a look, shall we? I've got a story up here from the Daily Mail. Thousands of migrants pour in as extraordinary standoff erupts between federal border patrol and local forces who don't trust Biden's White House to keep out the masses. Yeah, and apparently it's troubling echoes of the American Civil War. Do you think it's going to end up in civil war? I'm not 100% sure. Right. Clutching assault rifles and surrounded by Humvee armoured cars and state police, a group of National Guardsmen in full combat gear stand menacingly next to a gate under a 20-foot-high reinforced steel fence. Given the endless strife along America's southern frontier a few hundred yards away, it's not an unexpected sight in this rough and ready border town. But these troops are not facing Mexico. Instead, they're staring back towards the Texan town of Eagle Pass and the rest of America. Ooh, sounds ominous, doesn't it? For this particular display of military muscle isn't meant to send a signal to the hordes of asylum seekers pouring into the country week after week. Instead, it's to stop the federal law enforcement agents of the Biden administration from coming anywhere near. So, from what I can gather, for some unknown reason, Biden and his ilk just want the border to be open, right? I don't understand this. Across the Western world, there is a very, very serious problem with mass immigration, and it's completely changing the face of our countries as we know it. You only have to look at Europe to see just how disruptive it's been. You know, London, you're in the minority if you're white and British now. So it's a big issue across the entire Western world. And we look to America because, generally speaking, we tend to follow what America does. So Greg Abbott, as governor of Texas, has turned around and said, no, we want to defend our border. You know, we have a constitutional right. He's issued a statement. I'll get to that. We have a constitutional right and need to defend our border. For some reason, the White House has said you can't use razor wire because it hurts people. It stops people being able to cross over into the country, right? And it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of the point, is that you want to deter people from crossing over. Let's continue with this story anyway. In an extraordinary development that illustrates both the ferocious political polarization of the US and the growing rancor surrounding America's immigration crisis, an armed standoff between the Texas National Guard and the US Border Patrol has developed in this proudly independent corner of the country. Yeah, that's what people fail to remember, is that Texas is basically its own country. The remarkable scenes that the Mail witnessed stem from a highly provocative decision this month by, is it provocative? by Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott to order armed troops and police to take control of Eagles Pass 47-acre Shelby Park, a critical entry point for undocumented migrants, and freeze out the Border Patrol. Since Biden was elected, Abbott has lambasted the Democrats for doing much to encourage the migration crisis. Yeah, we have a similar issue here in our country. And bear in mind that our government are the Conservatives, who are supposed to be the more right-wing party, which you would expect to be less welcoming to immigrants, but the floodgates are open and no one has done a thing about it. During his election campaign, the president vowed to restore America's moral standing in the world and our historic role as a safe haven for refugees and asylum seekers. Yeah, but they have to do it legally. This is like, I'm sure there are some people out there who just don't want any immigration at all. But I think most people would agree that if people want to apply to come to a different country, to move to a different country through the legal channels, and then await that decision as to whether or not they can move there, I don't think there's a lot of people that would have a problem with that. But this sort of free pass, just everyone can come in, and over here we're putting them up in hotels. Like, you've seen the dinghies coming across the channel, like packed full of mostly men. And they're getting hotels, money, phones. The government have now given 16,000 asylum seekers, so illegal migrants, 16,000 of them have been granted the right to work in the UK. The right to work. You're here illegally. Why are you giving them the right to work? I don't understand it. Rather than sneak into the US and go into hiding, most migrants know that the first thing they need to do is find a border patrolman and request asylum. They will then be swiftly processed and released into the care of a non-governmental organisation. They can legally remain and work in the US until their application is decided, a process that often takes years. Why? Why do these decisions take years? As the floodgates opened, Eagle Pass, a small town with a population of just 28,000 people, became a focal point for the migrant influx. In the week before Christmas alone, the local border patrol apprehended more than 22,000 undocumented migrants, most from Latin America. Yeah, I mean, most of the people crossing the border into the US are from the South American countries. But they're getting an awful lot more now, Africans and Indians and Chinese as well. Many were held in a field in Shelby Park, overwhelming local police, fire and ambulance services. The already cash-strapped town lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in income when one of the two economically crucial bridges in Mexico was closed to free up more border agents. A few months earlier, Abbott had ordered a 1,000-foot string of buoys separated by serrated metal plates akin to circular saw blades and supported a submerged mesh net to be installed near Eagle Pass in the Rio Grande, the river that marks the border between Texas and Mexico. The move sparked outrage from the Mexican government and human rights groups. Well, you have to dissuade these people somehow. And if you're not going to do it by saying, you're not going to be allowed to work, you're not going to be given any benefits, you're not going to be given any housing, which we know they won't do because, again, the human rights people will kick off. I just don't see any other way of doing it rather than trying to physically bar their entry. Then just over 2 weeks ago, Abbott took what many regarded as the nuclear option and decided to enforce his views down the barrel of a gun. National Guardsmen occupied Shelby Park overnight and, against the wishes of the town which owns the park, started strengthening fortifications. Why did the park not want the town not want them to strengthen the defences? Okay. Some people just don't know what's best for them, do they? Announcing it was taking over the park indefinitely, both to stop asylum seekers entering and to block organisations that perpetrate the illegal immigrant crossings, the Texas Military Department left little doubt what it meant the hapless agencies of the Biden administration. As Commander-in-Chief of the 18,000-strong Texas Army National Guard and in emergencies of its state police, Abbott has been able to flood the park's 2.5-mile stretch along the river with manpower and hardware such as searchlights and cameras. He has barred entry by border patrol officers, despite the federal agency being tasked with policing the border. The park has been closed to everyone except, bizarrely, members of its golf course who are still allowed to play. Good for the golfers, though. And then, it's going on about the Civil War, which we know was fought over slavery and such. So the mayor was granted access to the park and given a tour. Abbott has just passed controversial legislation making illegally crossing the border a state crime punishable by up to 6 months in jail. So it's already a federal crime to illegally enter the country, but we all know that the federal agents are not enforcing it, so they're kind of getting away with it. So by him now making it a state law means he can actually arrest these people and stick them in jail. The law allows the judge to drop the charges if a migrant agrees to return to Mexico. Fair enough, yeah, because then the crime is null and void. Outraged Democrats say the new law is unconstitutional because immigration enforcement is a federal responsibility. So another court battle looms, but the governor and his supporters are undeterred. We want migrants to seek asylum, but we want them to do this legally and safely. Like, what is wrong with that? Really? What is wrong with that? So obviously, it's all kicked off, and Biden's told them they have to take the razor wire down, and Greg Abbott said no and put more up. And he also issued this statement. The federal government has broken the compact between the United States and the states. The executive branch of the United States has a constitutional duty to enforce federal laws protecting states, including immigration laws on the books right now. President Biden has refused to enforce those laws and has even violated them. The result is that he has smashed records for illegal immigration. President Biden has violated his oath to faithfully execute immigration laws enacted by Congress. Instead of prosecuting immigrants for the federal crime of illegal entry, President Biden has sent his lawyers into federal court to sue Texas for taking action to secure the border. I do wonder what the end game is with these globalists. You know, because there's no such thing as a global citizen. Because to be a citizen means that someone's in charge. So I don't really understand. I mean, maybe I need to look up some comic book villains and look into things that way. But anyway, this video is going on far too long now. So are you on Greg Abbott's side or are you on Biden's side? Do you think the border should be open? Do you think the border should be closed? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you very soon.